OpenAI just came out with AgentBuilder, which is their no-code version of creating agentic workflows. But that's actually just one part of what they're calling AgentKit, which also includes ChatKit, widget building, and also tracing observability. So we're gonna go over all of that, and I'm gonna show you how to do that in this course. And by the end, we'll have our own locally hosted version that uses ChatKit along with using the agentic workflow that we're gonna build from scratch and go over. But we're gonna do all this with step one, and that's understanding what AgentKit is. All right, so what is AgentKit? Well, this allows you to build and create workflows with AgentBuilder, which is the visual canvas that I talked about and that you have seen. We can deploy our AgentBuilder using ChatKit to embed your agent workflows in your front end. And then we can optimize and build robust evaluations to observe and improve agent performance. So how do we build an actual AI agent? Well, we use the AgentBuilder, which is the visual canvas for creating agent workflows. We can bring models, tools, knowledge, and logic all into one place. We'll connect to OpenAI's models, use tools, guardrails. We can provide our own control flow with like if-else statements, which we'll see, and then we can also write our own code. Then we can customize the chat with something called ChatKit, which is different, but it's a part of AgentBuilder and AgentKit. So we can customize a UI component, and just by using a workflow ID, which AgentBuilder will give you, you can embed your agent workflow in your product. And you can customize the output of it with their widget builder. This is going to give a customized look to the chat output. And I'm also going to show you how to locally host your own ChatKit, as well as creating a production-ready app, which will integrate ChatKit with the application, which means we'll be integrating AgentBuilder or our AI agents. And instead of a typical backend, we'll be using Supra-based edge functions, so you don't have to worry about having a separate fast API backend running with ngrok or something similar. Well, let's get started with creating our first agent in AgentBuilder. All right, so what you're gonna do to start off is go to platformopenai.com/agent-builder. And then you're gonna be presented with this screen, and this is where we're gonna create our workflow. So the first thing I wanna do though, is over here in templates, you can choose one of these to kind of get an idea of what it is. So let's do the document comparison. And let's just take a look at what this is. That loaded strange, but this is going to tell us and give us some idea of what we're working with. So anytime you see like kind of the blue, that's an actual agent, right? The blue with an arrow, that's an agent. On the left-hand side here are basically all of the nodes that you can use. So we have an agent and a note. That's the yellow kind of sticky note if you're using N8N. The tools, we have file search, guardrails, and MCP servers. Then for the logic that I mentioned, for the control flow, we have if, else, while, and also user approval. And then some data you can transform and set states to use throughout the workflow. So in this example, it's saying to upload two similar documents. So what will happen is this triage request agent. So to kind of understand how it works, if you just click on the triage request agent, over here on the right-hand side, it kind of opens up. Here are the instructions for the agent. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you give the name, the instructions, you can include the chat history. Here we can choose the model, the tools. This is where you can add MCP server, file search, code interpreter, a local function, etc. And then you can also choose the output format. Here is the widget, which we'll get to later. And then under the more, you kind of do more with the parameters of the model, okay? So once the agent takes those documents, we have an if else. So if the agent says, okay, we need to compare these documents, or it needs to answer a question or anything else, it'll go to these agents, okay? So it's gonna kind of control where it's gonna go next. And then so if we go to propose reconciliation, then what this agent is going to do is it's going to take those differences and propose what to do with those documents. It's then going to send those over. And then here, this is the same as the user approval. We're going to either decide to approve or reject based on what that reconciliation agent tells us. We can do that ourselves, and then it'll go to the appropriate agent. Let's just go ahead and run this. So how to run it, like here, you're just going to choose preview. And I'm just going to upload two documents. Okay, so I just uploaded two lease agreements. I'm going to submit this. And so as you can see, it started. Here's a triage request agent. I have a hard time saying that. So now it's going to the if else statement. So propose reconciliation. It's giving some examples that we need to see what the differences were between these. And then says, please confirm that this compromise on monthly rent is acceptable. Okay, so this is the approval stage. Okay, so over here, it's saying, please review this, and we can decide whether to approve or reject this. So let's just say we don't like it. We're going to reject it. So then what it's going to do is go to this agent. It's going to do whatever it's supposed to do, and then come back with the next part or next thing that we should do. If we approved it, then what it would do is it would get ready to send an email. And so because we rejected it, it just gave us a list of things, an alternative or compromise. So let's begin creating our first AI agent. So we're just going to click create. And then it starts us with the start in the My Agent node. Okay, so if we click on My Agent, it's really bare. It just says you are helpful assistant. It's starting with GPT-5, the reasoning effort. It's very bare. So what we want to do is, because we're going to be building a production application where you can learn, so think of something like Udemy or Coursera, but not that big. We want to have a chatbot inside of there that'll go to this agent, and then it will be able to give us more information, which means we will have our own vector store as a part of this. Okay, so we just want to rewrite the user's question to be more specific and relevant to the knowledge base. That's the only instruction, but we need to capture the actual input. So if we click this plus button to create a new prompt message, make sure this is user, and then this can be really simple. So we can say the original question, and then in double curly braces, okay, we can actually, it's going to come in here, the workflow input. So input as text, this is going to be what's coming in to the agent. Okay, so that's great. So now we have the text, and this means that we can have this agent kind of rewrite this, and then it's going to pass it down, and then we'll see what to do with it based on other agents to decide whether it's something we need to answer. If it has nothing to do with the website at all, then we just want to skip it and tell it, hey, you're not answering the question. Please ask a question about the website, or something like that. So to do the next one, we're just going to click the little circle here, drag it over. The new node, we want to be an agent, and we can rename this. We can maybe call this classifier agent. And then for the instructions, I'm just going to paste this in, but this is saying determine whether the question should use the Q&A or fact-finding process. Okay, now we just need to create a new prompt message for the user. So we can just say, let's say this is the question, and then double curly braces. Then it automatically comes up and it lets you choose, which is really nice. So we want the output from my agent. So my agent, so output text, it's input.output_text. To me, it's a little strange, but it's just saying the output text from the previous agent we want in here. Okay, great. So here we could also use a different model, right? Maybe we don't need that one. We could just use GPT-4.1 mini, because it's just a classifier agent. Okay, maybe we don't need a reasoning model. Okay, but in order to actually classify this, we wanted to output specific strings or specific text, and then based on that output, we'll know what to do with it next. So how we do that is in the output format here. Instead of text, we'll say JSON. We're going to add a schema. So click this. You can call this whatever you want. We'll just rename this operating procedure enum. Enum meaning this is a set string that we're going to use for the next agent. And then for the properties, so we need to add a property. So this will be operating_procedure. We want this type. You can choose, this can be anything, but for us, we're going to choose enum. This is going to be select, this is the description, right? So this just kind of helps it out. So we're going to select the correct procedure to move forward. And then for the values, so we can just say Q and A, press enter. Then we can use for the next one. We can say fact finding. And then if it's anything else not related, like I mentioned, we can just say other. Okay, great. So now we can update this. Okay, so now we have specific outputs. This means that on the next node, let's go ahead and drag and drop the end of that agent. We're going to choose if else. So if, now the case name, so you can just name this whatever. This is just the name. This isn't what we just put in. So if the operating procedure, now we need the actual condition for this from the previous node, right? We had set them as Q&A, fact finding, other. So now we'll come up here, the classifier agent, which is the previous one. We want to say operating procedure. So the output parsed from the previous one in the actual operating procedure, if that's equal to, and then we're going to say Q dash and A. Okay, that's good. We want to add another one. Else if, this is going to be facts. So we can say operating procedure, not that one, operating procedure is equal to, and put that in quotes. We'll press enter. And then and then you come back in here, click add. This is going to be, actually we do not need another one. I apologize, because the else will basically be other, everything else. So if it's not Q&A or fact finding, it's going to go to else. Okay, so if it's Q&A, we want to add another node. This is going to be another agent node. This can be Q and A agent. And then for the instructions, I'm just gonna kind of paste this in here, but this is going to be answering users' questions based on the knowledge you have on hand, file, or web search. And we just want to be concise and answer with bullet points, summarize the answer up front. Okay, so now we're gonna use our first tool. So for the tools, we're going to click the plus symbol, and then we're gonna say web search. Okay, so in here, what you can do is you can search, this is optional. You can have it search only in these countries. Actually, all of this is optional, right? We don't have to just do here, but I'm just gonna do just within the USA. I don't need a state or time zone or anything like that. But basically you can just click add. Okay, we are good there. And then we need one for the facts. So we'll drag another agent over. We'll call this fact agent. And then for the instructions, again, I'll have this so you can just kind of copy paste this, but you want to explore external information using the tools you have. And again, this is actually one thing is I can't just export this as JSON like you can with like N8N, for example, and you use this. So you're gonna have to do that. You're also gonna have to follow this with me. Okay, so after we have the instructions for this, which said you can have, let's give this one. We also want this to do a web search within the United States. So add that, and then also do a code interpreter. And what we'll do is now the facts and Q&A don't seem any different. For the Q&A, we'll come back here later and we will use the vector tool. We just won't do that yet. And then finally for else, we need another agent. So need an agent node. And then this is just gonna tell them, hey, ask for more information because what you're asking doesn't make any sense. It's not relevant to what we're doing. Okay, so now let's go ahead and test this. So what we've done is we basically set up about 5 different agents. We have a control flow and we have a start. So let's go ahead and just preview this. Let's say, can you tell me more about AgentKit from OpenAI? To see if maybe it can't. Okay, so we have the start node. Now it's going to my agent. So it's going to take the question that was asked, then it's going to kind of rewrite this. Then it's going to give it to the classifier agent. Agent's going to classify this into basically one of 3 things. Basically this rewrote it. Okay, so now the classifier agent is determined that this was fact finding. So now it is correctly going to the fact agent, and then said, do you mean OpenAI's API SDK? Sometimes loosely referred to AgentKit, and then just kind of gives us some more information, a little bit of information about it. Okay, so that's great. We just got our first workflow running and we put together a bunch of agents. Now I know I explained that and it may have taken just a little bit to put together, but especially as your first time, that's just great. Now we have something to start with that we can use with ChatKit. Okay, so what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and see it's up here on the top left, it's in draft state. We're gonna go ahead and publish this. So we can just name this, let's see, Q&A workflow and publish it. Okay, so it's published. Great, so now it says it's in production. And see here, what we get is a workflow ID that I had mentioned before for ChatKit, or if you want to use this as part of the Agents SDK, they give you the code in TypeScript and Python, right? So you could basically just copy all of this code and use this as part of the Agents SDK, but we are going to use it as part of ChatKit. So go ahead and just copy this workflow ID and we're gonna use this later. Of course, if you mess this up at the top right, if you just choose code, you can bring this back up and get it later too. It's okay. But now we're going to understand ChatKit, do a few things, because I'll be honest with you, if you were to look at this, maybe it's just me, but this did not make a lot of sense, right? They're basically saying there's 2 ways to implement ChatKit. And the reason they have this is because you build this agent with their agent builder, and then you're gonna have this ChatKit that kind of integrate with the front and back end. It can talk with the agent builder through a session, which is part of their API. And it kind of seems like a lot. The recommended way is to embed ChatKit in your front end, and then let OpenAI host and scale the backend from AgentBuilder, which it says it requires a development server, but I'm gonna show you how to do it with a Supabase Edge function, which yes is code, but you don't have to have a separate fast API or anything like that, right? Which is what I mentioned already. Now you can run this on your own infrastructure using the ChatKit SDK. We're not doing that this time, okay? So we come down here, right? Go through all this. They even give you some code examples, but I have to be honest, this still didn't help me out that much. So I kind of went through the weeds on this and finally got something working, but I want to show you kind of what it is first. So let's run this with a local host, and then we'll get started with getting the app ready. Okay, so they actually have a starter app right here where you can clone a repo to get started. So over here is the repo. I'm not gonna go through all this. I'm just gonna show you how this works. Okay, so what you're gonna do if you haven't done this before, and of course you can just watch me do this so we can get ready for the production app. But over here where it says code, you're just gonna copy this URL to clipboard. And so I have my project open. I have a folder called OpenAI ChatKit. So I'm just gonna type git clone and then paste that in. It's gonna clone what we need in here. All right, so now that we have it right over here, you're going to type CD and then go into that OpenAI ChatKit starter app. You can always press tab if you start typing it. So type clear. Then we need to do a couple things. We need to first do npm install. So all of the libraries and packages that we need it's going to install them so this can run. So we're gonna get that. As soon as this is done, we're gonna need two things. We need an OpenAI key, and we also need that workflow ID that we got from AgentBuilder. Okay. So what we need to do, if you open it up, there's an environment example. So you can say copy.env.example, and we're gonna say .env.local. Okay, so now we have env local. So again, like I said, it needs an OpenAI key and that workflow ID. So we can first go back to our agent builder. I'm gonna copy this ID, come back here. I'm going to, in the .env local, I'm gonna paste that in, and then just go ahead and paste in your API key here, which you can get from platform OpenAI. And now that we're ready, we got all that set up, we're gonna type in npm run dev, and also make sure that you save your files if you're using Cursor, right? So now it's going to start running our application. It is running on localhost 3000. So let's go ahead and open that up. This hopefully works. Okay, it does. So it's loading a session. Is what you create with OpenAI to chat with it. This should connect to our agents that we just created with AgentBuilder. So let's ask it a question. Can you tell me more about AI agents? Okay, so what we should see is that we should see some parts of the agent as the response here. So I know it's going to take a minute. I'm just going to stay talking while this is running, but it's good that we're seeing this ellipses, right? So it's actually trying to understand. So it rewrote the question. So it's rewriting the question, right? So the operating procedure, it decided was Q&A. So now it gave us a quick summary, what they are, the core components, and some common design patterns, popular frameworks, SDKs. Here's some, it's trying to give us high value. It's giving us a lot of information. Right? We asked it a question, it's giving us a lot of information. You could always go back in and edit the agent so it doesn't give you all of this, right? But this is amazing. And so we know it worked because it went to the Q&A, right? So let's say, can you give me help on creating Halloween food? Let's see where this goes. I didn't really give it too much about what is deemed not a good question. So it's trying to refine the question. Let's see if it just goes to Q&A, right? So what you could do is we could get more guardrails. So it's like, hey, this is nothing related to this application that we have. Make sure it goes to like other, right? So anyways, it worked. It's working the way it's supposed to be working. That's actually a user error that we're not setting agents up properly. Okay, great. I can't cook, so this isn't gonna help me anything. Okay, great. So with this works. Ignore the issue, doesn't matter. So this works. Now this is a local version. What we want is we want this to be a part of a production application. But there is one thing I wanna do first before we move on is I want this to look better. I don't like the way, it's just spitting out text, right? I don't necessarily like the way this looks. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, let's go with this first answer. So I'm gonna copy all of this. Let's go and copy this. And instead of agent builder here, what we can do is there's actually a widget builder, okay? So there's a widget. Let's go to, widget builder. All right, so there is a widgets.chatkit.studio. Okay, so what this is going to do is going to give us a widget as part of the chat, and that's where the output's going to go. And you can mock up a lot of things. So let's say, and I'm just kind of doing this off the cuff with this. So here we have some output. It will always be academic related and with AI specifically. Can you give us a modern and sleek widget for the output. Okay, so what this is really going to be doing is it's going to be giving some code. That widget we're going to upload to the agent that we want for the output. So you could have something specific for Q&A and also something specific for fact finding. You know, you can really modify it. You can do some pretty amazing things, but I just want it to create one, and then we're going to rerun that locally, and then we're going to get ready to have our production ready app. Okay, so here is what the new output would look like. I don't necessarily know if I like this, but I'm just kind of showing you what it's doing. So this is the code that it's using. So now what we can basically do is we can download this. Now back in our AgentBuilder for the Q&A agent, what we can do for the output format, we can choose widget, and then we want to add our widget. So we're going to upload. You can also create your widget from there. It'll take you to the widget studio. So we're going to upload the widget. We're going to open that. Okay. And then what we are going to do is we're going to publish this. Yep. So publish this. This will be the new version. So give this a minute to finish the publishing. And then we're going to rerun our local. I'm going to rerun the local and see if it gives us this output. Okay, and so here you can see it used that widget as the output. So this is, again, this was for Q&A, and then here's the widget. I mean, you could definitely come up with probably better widgets than this, but this is an example of how you can use. You can also use this when they first ask a question. It's not just for the output, right? This is used for any agent, what you want to look like with part of the chatbot. Okay, great. We've done a lot so far. So now what we're going to do is we're going to integrate this agent workflow, AgentBuilder, with our ChatKit, but it's going to be in a more production ready environment. So let's go ahead and get ready, because the next step we're going to be creating something with bolt.new. Okay, so as I mentioned before, the next thing I want to do with this is we're going to use a vector store. We're going to create one and then add that as part of the AI agent process. So if we go back to our agent builder, this is where we're at so far. So the next thing we want to do is create our vector store. So if you click on the edge, these lines are called edges. It's kind of standard with graphs. And for the Q&A, we want to add another line. And for the node, we are going to choose file search. And then back over here on the right, we need to enter a vector store ID. So to do that, we need to first create a vector store with some files. So if we click on create, it's going to take us to the page for OpenAI to create it. So now on the screen, we are going to go ahead and click create. And then we want to first off name our store. So we can say Q&A, because this is going to be for our Q&A agent. And then the next thing we need to do is come up with files that we want to add. These can be any files. In particular, I'm going to have files pertaining to AI agents or agent frameworks. So I'm going to click at the bottom, add files, then upload. This come up the screen. I'm going to upload a PDF file. Okay, so once this is done loading, then I'm going to just say attached. And of course, you can choose the chunk size for your tokens, the chunk overlap. You can modify this if you want, but for now, we're just gonna keep it default. So click attach. And so now it's going to create this. And once you are ready, click the little check mark at the top right. And then now we have our vector store created. Now what we need is the ID. Okay, so now we're gonna bring that ID back into our agent builder. And so for the file search, we want to insert that right there, and it's gonna come up with the Q&A. Okay, great. So what we can do is we can add context right here. So you wanted to search, we are going to choose the input as text. So this is kind of what we're initially querying. So this is going to bring us some more information from the file search. Okay, then now to really make this work though, the way it works is we need to actually transform this data. So we need to kind of create another node, transform. So let's just do that. I'll explain it. So we're going to go to another node. We're going to use data transform. This is just a way to reshape the data. Okay, the key is, yes, we want the result. That's what we're going to be passing in. Now for this, we want this to just be the results. We can actually, I think we just pass in the whole thing. So results content, right? I think we can just do that right there. Okay, so this is how it works. Actually, you don't need the curly braces for this, of course. So this is a different little expression language. So it's the input results of 0. So the first array results, and then just all the content that it gives us. Okay, so that's going to be the value. And then we're going to pass that off to the Q&A agent. So here we want to add some context. So we want to pass in the result. Okay, that's the context that we want to pass in. And then again, we have the same widget that we had used before. So what we can do now is we can go ahead and preview this to make sure that's working, because then I'm going to show you how to evaluate this. Okay, so it's going to do what it typically does. So we start, my agent is going to kind of restructure into the question. The classifier agent is going to determine it should be. So this is a Q&A operation. Then we perform the file search, then transform, and then finally Q&A agent is going to kind of take everything and then put that into an output. So right here is our final output, right? And then again, we can change this, we can add it into other places, the widget. So let's go close this preview. You can click on evaluate. So let's do the latest one that we just did. Okay, so just to make sure, my agent, the post response, this was, so the input was, can you show me 3 agentic patterns? Okay, great. So let's go back. Let's open this up. Now for the workflow, the node file search, just to make sure, the text was, this is part of the content. This, So this is coming from that file name. Then we basically have up to, I think this looks like maybe close to 9 different parts of the PDF that I uploaded. And this is this particular text from that. So that's good. And then what we want to do is, we want to pass that on to transform. So the input, this is what we want to be passed into the transform. So these is basically all of the results. That's great. And then finally the Q&A agent. So the responses, the system instructions. Good. So this is the input. And then finally we get our response as the output. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to publish this. So we're going to publish this again. It's going to give us, I worked on this a few times. So now it says version 5 production. Now, all we need to do, let's go through this again. Let's just see if this will work again. So it should just connect directly to the agent builder. Okay, so I just say, can you give me 4 agentic frameworks to use? It goes through the standard process and outputs in our widget. 4 frameworks to consider. This is their quick take. Now, this is a beginner course. I've played around with this a lot in the last 24 hours. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's doing what I've done, sometimes it's not. Whenever I'm updating the agent builder, sometimes it doesn't reflect locally. I've tried like at least 10 times to get this working with bolt.new. I got it working once, then when I tried to replicate it, the CDN was down. It's part of the frustration of it being new, right? And that's okay. It's just what it is. So this is going to be a beginner course to how to use it locally, kind of get you started with what it is and how to even get something going, okay? Once they get it more fleshed out, hopefully in a week, and they get some of the bugs and get it more stable, again, this is kind of like a beta release essentially. So once that happens, then we'll have a much better and more stable course that I can use with the production app and show you guys how to do that. Okay, thanks for watching. Here are more courses for you to watch.